Imagine this, you step outside and instead of a dusty gray crater, you see a giant blue rectangle, a swimming pool on the moon, a shimmering oasis in a world of silence and rock, the first lunar pool in human history. Sounds insane, right? But let's ask the question. What would really happen if we tried? Let's say you're an engineer and NASA finally lost its mind. You're told, build a pool on the moon, big enough to swim laps. So, you grab your tools, your helmet, and a few hundred tons of water. Easy, right? Wrong. Because the first problem hits you. Before you even open the toolbox, gravity. The moon's gravity is only 1/6 of Earth's. That means everything weighs less. You, your tools, and yes, the water. If you jumped into a lunar pool, your splash wouldn't be a splash at all. The water would float, slowly twisting upward in slow motion, forming beautiful shimmering blobs that hang in the air like floating jellyfish. It would look magical for about 3 seconds. Then everything goes wrong. Those floating blobs, they drift apart, tiny droplets spread out, and now your pool looks more like a cloud of shiny bubbles, suspended in zero-ish gravity. Good luck swimming in that. You try a cannonball, and instead of a satisfying splash, you'd launch a dozen tiny water globes, gently colliding with your helmet. Fun for 5 seconds, terrifying after that. Even if you solve the gravity problem, you're still on the moon, which means no atmosphere, no air, no pressure, no protection. That's bad news for your pool. Because the moment you pour water onto the lunar surface, it begins to boil and freeze at the same time. Why? Because space is weird. In the vacuum, liquid water can't exist. It either turns into vapor or solid ice. Instantly. Your dream pool? Gone. Evaporated in seconds, leaving behind a thin layer of frost, like spilled soda on a winter sidewalk. And yes, you'd also need to avoid inhaling any of the water vapor. That would be very bad. But let's say you're stubborn. You build a sealed dome around the pool, a glass bubble, filled with air. Now we're talking. Except you forgot about temperature. On the moon, days are 14. Earth days long. So when the sun shines, the surface gets up to 120 degrees Celsius. That's hotter than your oven. But when night falls, it drops to minus 170 degrees Celsius, cold enough to freeze metal solid and and maybe your soul. That means your pool water would constantly swing from boiling to frozen. Half the time it's a hot spring, the other half, a skating rink. You'd need an engineering team, a dozen climate control robots, and probably a priest to survive this roller coaster. All right, fine, you're not giving up yet. You design a special pressure dome, a self-contained habitat with climate control, heating, cooling, oxygen, and maybe a tiny bar for moral support. Finally, your lunar pool is stable, the temperature's perfect, the air pressure is normal, you fill it with crystal clear water, you dive in, and for a brief, glorious moment, you're swimming on the moon, except it feels weird. On Earth, when you push against water, your body meets resistance. That's what lets you float and swim. But on the moon, your body is 6 times lighter. You push with the same force and launch yourself like a torpedo. Every movement sends you flying. You don't swim anymore. You bounce through the water like an astronaut dolphin. Each stroke propels you meters forward. You could do a full lap with just 2 kicks and forget about flipping gracefully, because the next splash could send you spinning upside down at Mach slow motion. Fun? Absolutely. Safe? Not so much. And then reality hits again. To keep your pool running, you need constant energy, solar panels, heaters, pressure systems, water recycling, and yes, a team of engineers who never sleep. If anything breaks, even for a few minutes, the air leaks out, the pressure drops, and the water instantly boils away. Imagine watching your pool turn into a cloud of steam that floats toward the black lunar sky. Your $1 million project, gone in 30 seconds. But hey, maybe that's not the end. Imagine astronauts floating inside that dome, watching slow motion waves glimmer under artificial sunlight. They could use it for recreation, for therapy, even for science, studying fluid motion in low gravity. Because weirdly enough, a pool on the moon would be a perfect laboratory. Scientists could learn how water behaves in partial gravity, how surface tension works without wind, how waves form when you splash in slow motion. Maybe one day, that knowledge helps us design habitats for Mars or beyond. And yes, some engineers might bet on who can do the biggest splash in 1/6 gravity. And yes, the losers would float into the wall. In the end, a lunar pool isn't just an engineering challenge. It's a symbol. It says, we've made it so far into space. We can swim there now. A reminder that humans don't just survive. We adapt. We create comfort, even in the most hostile places. A pool on the moon might sound like a luxury, but it's really a declaration that one day space will feel like home. So, what if we built a pool on the moon? We'd learn that water doesn't care about dreams, only about physics. We'd fight gravity, pressure, and temperature just to take one perfect dive. But that single splash in slow motion under a black sky might become the most beautiful moment in the history of exploration, because it wouldn't just be water floating there. It would be proof that humans can bring life anywhere, even to the moon. And maybe, just maybe, one day we'll all be doing backflips in low gravity while sipping a cocktail under the stars.